Expectations have risen for the Texans in large part, and perhaps for the most part, because of C.J. Stroud. Now, C.J. Stroud is getting some criticism by some people you might suspect would criticize him. However, is the criticism fair? Has C.J. Stroud changed, or have the people just started paying more attention? Let's go inside the locker room.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the locker room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey, locker room. Yeah, we in the.
All right, so Mike Florio was talking about C.J. Stroud. We'll hear what he said in a sec, but this was the interview with C.J. Stroud that led to Mike Florio, first of all, getting a hell of a lot of content. And I do want to give Mike Florio credit. I think the NFL is easier to follow with Mike Florio covering it. I think that he does a good job working his ass off and getting stuff done. I think sometimes he kind of battles with being an aggregator, a reporter, all that. And I do think a lot of times there's a little hall monitor-y vibe to it. But this was a clip. It was $1 million worth of game with Gillian Wallow. This was C.J. Stroud listing his top 5 quarterbacks. And this, you'll hear what Mike Florio had to say about this as training camp is about 1 month away.
Oh, no, I'm tripping. Let me go. I'm going.
Tripping?
So, look, final 5. I know what I'm doing.
Top 5 of 2024. 2023, I should say.
Mahomes, Lamar, myself, Dak.
Joey B.
No, he didn't really play last year. And then Hurts.
Dak,
that boy. Y'all not gonna say that because he ain't won.
All right, so there you go. He listed his top 5 quarterbacks of the season, and it obviously went viral because it's a slow news day, and the slow time of the year. And it led to Mike Florio kind of criticizing him. He also had comments about the career of Aaron Rodgers and the career of Matthew Stafford. And again, the league is easier to follow because of Mike Florio. Does a good job aggregating, does a good job throwing out some topics. He knows how to put stuff out there. Again, a little bit snitchy and not really the best of takes a lot of times, and talks out of both ends. But this was Mike Florio on Pro Football Talk's reaction to C.J. Stroud simply listing his top 5 quarterbacks. Here is Mike Florio with Chris Sims.
They started to get a higher profile, but we still didn't hear much from C.J. Stroud during the season. They were not a big, heavy, focused team. And now, I don't know if it's from hanging around Micah Parsons or it's just finally coming out, but you know, Chris, this is something that you've been banging for the past couple of days. This idea that you've got a guy who is an active player, active quarterback. But it's one thing for you and me to throw out the hot takes. Exactly. We're not in the bubble.
Right.
I mean, you get criticism of Aaron Rodgers and the call's coming from inside the house. That is different than any type of criticism Aaron Rodgers is ever going to take. No one has dared to speak a word that could even be remotely interpreted in a way as criticism. And it's so funny because I got all these Texans fans now saying, you're taking it out of context. You got to watch the whole interview. He praised Aaron Rodgers. I don't care what the hell he said about Aaron Rodgers the rest of the time. I know what he said and what we just played.
That's kind of weird. I don't really understand what exactly that means. So you don't care about the context. You care about generating a headline. That when people talk about clicks and all that type of stuff, sometimes it's a little dramatic. Like, okay, he's getting a click. It's not the end all be all. And quite frankly, you have the right to approach context. Like, you have the right. Like, just because if an editor, if a aggregator, if a journalist puts out a click, you have the ability to develop the ability to read, and you have the ability to present your own context. Florio chooses to ignore the context because he wants to focus on the headlines, and that's part of the reason that he's done what he's done. But this notion that C.J. Stroud is somehow some different guy now because there's more attention, it couldn't be any further from the truth. Is it okay for a football player to be a fan of a sport? Now, I get that sometimes you might want to watch stuff. I also think there's kind of a tendency sometimes, whether it's media, whether it's fans, I don't want to generalize everyone, but some of us tend to take something and create a reason for why a team lost a game. Like last year when the Texans lost to the Carolina Panthers or Atlanta Falcons, it was they just weren't ready to play. Maybe they just got beat. Happens in the NFL. If so-and-so says something before the game and they end up losing, is that really the reason that they lost the game? We tend to kind of overdo these types of things and overanalyze these types of things. But this is CJ Stroud last year. This is him before he was even quarterback of the Texans. And you can see the headline right there, QB at Ohio State. This is CJ Stroud last year before he even put on an NFL uniform.
What's up, CJ? Top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL right now.
Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen. I'm trying to think, dog.
Lamar?
Justin Fields.
Ooh, I like that.
I like Lamar too. Man, it's hard, bro. It's a lot of dogs out there. So I respect everybody. Like Lamar, dog. I love Josh Allen game. Burrow probably one of my favorite. I think I'm out of my game to Burrow a lot. But yeah, I like all of them, man.
It's literally the exact same thing he said in $1 Million Worth of Game. The exact same thing. He's a fan. He likes the game. What's wrong with a quarterback who's a fan of the game as well? Why can't he have an opinion on who the top 5 quarterbacks are? Because Aaron Rodgers might put him on some imaginary bleep list. So now if the Texans go lose to the Jets, which, by the way, they lost to the Jets last year when CJ Stroud was had one of the best rookie seasons we've ever seen. And by the way, Zach Wilson was quarterback. Now if the Texans lose to the Jets with a future Hall of Famer, we're going to say it's because he said something about Aaron Rodgers and compared him to Matthew Stafford and talked about their upbringings. It's a slow news time. Florio admittedly is kind of a headline guy. And I think this notion that a quarterback or an active athlete can't be a fan and have conversations like fans, I think it's crazy. Do I think sometimes some athletes kind of get themselves in trouble by saying a little bit too much? Sure. But that's just kind of how it is. But all CJ Stroud is doing is listing the top 5 performing quarterbacks of last year. And then he's having conversations that we love to have. Reason that I have a gig is because of conversations like that. So there's not a right way to athlete. There's not, hey, this guy has to act like this, that guy has to act like that. The beauty of professional athletes is it's a diverse group of experiences. It's a diverse group of personalities. Some guys move like Laramie Tunsil. Some guys move like Will Anderson. Some guys move like CJ Stroud. Some guys move like Matthew Stafford. But that's the beauty of it. And I think it's refreshing in an era where some may say, athletes are close to their audience because of social media, or there's also like a natural disconnect because sometimes social media can get out of control. I think it's cool to see a guy that is, as CJ Stroud says, a man in the arena having opinions that we like to discuss. And furthermore, as I just showed you, it's nothing new. It's the exact same conversation he's been having since he's came into the league. So a lot of times you worry about guys changing when they come into the NFL. CJ Stroud's been the same guy. Is the target on his chest bigger? Yeah, that's what happens when you win a division title. That's what happens when you win a playoff game. That's what happens when you have a rookie season like he did. That's what happens when you have an offseason like the Texans did. That's what happens when you have 6 primetime games. There's a bigger target on CJ Stroud because of the success that the Texans had last year. There's going to be more attention. There's going to be more guys wanting to bust his ass. That's how it works. It's not because he has a top 5 list of quarterbacks and he thinks that if Matthew Stafford and Aaron Rodgers had switched places, that maybe he would figure something out. So different strokes for different folks. Some people might not like CJ Stroud. Some people love CJ Stroud. But the one thing that I think you can say based on what we've seen in conclusion is he's the same guy last year as he was this year. Expectations have just kind of hopped up. Also can say Mike Florio, one of the best at covering the NFL, although it does seem like a lot of times he has an identity crisis. Shout out to everyone for coming through. Be sure to subscribe, right along for the best Texans coverage in the country. Subscribe to the other digital channels out there as well. Cody Stute, Seth Payne. Business is about to pick up. It's about to get really, really fun. How much talk is too much talk? What do you think of this whole thing? Let me know. And always remember, most importantly, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. Thanks for coming through.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the Locker Room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Ayy. Locker room, yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk, yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize every angle's what we really do.